name of Allah, the Beneficent and Merciful, giving praise and thanks, coming to us in the person of Master Father Muhammad. Thank you for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and, of course, Minister Louis Farrakhan. In their names, I greet you in the words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. So we're going to get right to our subject today, which is dealing with the effects of sugar, the dangers of sugar. And in your reading, of course, from pages 1 to 12, there are many foods that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad listed that we should eat. And of course, there are some questions at the beginning of the page that are asking what we will be trying to gain from this current section of our class, the first section. And so I would like for you all, as you do the Best Foods Challenge, which are the foods that he listed in How to Eat to Live. Most of those on that challenge will be from book 1. Some of those foods will be in book 2. So I only want you to consider those which are in book 1. But I want you to consider, as you're going through these foods, whether or not they have sugars in them. Because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is very specific when he talks about eating as much fruit as you can. He listed the good vegetables and the ones that we should not eat. He talked about bread, whole wheat bread, of course, that we should be making ourselves. He also discussed raw milk. All of these foods have sugars in them. But then he mentions macaroni, spaghetti, other types of breads he mentioned, and then, of course, sweets and cooked fruit. So as you're going through your Best Foods Challenge, let's make this a self-improvement class rather than just a class, trying to get a grade. Not saying that you are, but just trying to get through it. Let's look at how we're going to take this class and apply it to life and apply it to improving our health, so that we can go out and be stewards of how to eat to live and help our people see that there is an example of how we can gain good health. And it is through this book, How to Eat to Live. So let's just go through a couple of slides. I want to make a couple of points. The first being that a lot of people have a tendency to look at fruits and say that we shouldn't eat fruits. And as you see here, we're talking about the sugars that are in fruits. And so you can see on here how many cups of sugar they're talking about. I'm sorry, not cups, but grams of sugar they're saying are in these foods. But what we have to do is understand and put faith back into our health. It doesn't make sense to take information and guidance from people that lack faith or that think that they have an ability to be superior than what God or Allah has brought us. So when you're looking at fruits and you're eating fruits, you don't have to concern yourself with how much sugar is in them, because every sugar that's in fruit is associated with these wonderful, what we call, I call phytonutrients. You'll hear some people call them phytochemicals, but we have such a negative connotation with chemical. I like to use the word nutrient. So you look down here in red, you have polyphenol, lycopene. Your yellow and orange, you have beta carotene. And your green, you have folic acid, vitamin C. Purple, flavonoid, anthocyanin. And your white, you have isoflavone, anthocyanins, and quercetin. And down at the bottom, it's just showing you some of the good things that can happen in some of the systems that it works with. Like you see a couple of times here, you see antioxidants. If any of you have had an apple or you've had a banana, you bite into the apple, starts turning brown. You break the peel of the banana, you start pulling it back, the banana starts turning brown. That is an oxidative process that is also occurring in our bodies. And that's why we have to eat foods that are antioxidants. You see right here, the green fights fatigue and helps blood. Yeah, the green foods. And we have to be very specific with what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said we could eat and what we couldn't eat, because in book 2, he talks against eating a lot of green foods, but he was very specific in what type of green foods that we can eat. You see here, yellow and orange antioxidants, good for the skin. You see the red is it will fight tumors, fights heart disease, just prevents a lot of different diseases. So here is the reality of fruit and the nutrients that are associated in fruits with sugars. So that's why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that we could eat as much fruit as we like. And he's not telling us to be crazy and go eat too much fruit, but eating fruit is very, very healthy for these bodies. And we should be eating them on a regular basis. And so that is just a quick point that I wanted to make. I wanted us to see that sugar is very beneficial. It's just we have to be careful of overdoing it. And we also have to be careful of when we start buying things that is made by man, or we start putting together our own sweets and trying to do too much white sugar or even too much of a good sugar, it gets to a point where it's dangerous to the body. It can be very ill affecting to our bodies. And I'll use an example. I'm sure plenty of you can associate with this very easily. You've been at family gatherings and a child would eat some, cake with colorings in it, or some donuts, or some candy bars, or some type of colored drink which has a lot of sugar in it. And next thing you see, they're just erratic. But you don't see that when the child eats an apple or a banana, or eats some blueberries or some strawberries. You don't see that same erratic behavior. And so that's just somewhat of a physical and a mental connection we can make to sugar and how we act when we eat sugar that's natural versus how we act when we eat sugar that is unnatural and man-made. So keep that in mind as you go through the Best Foods Challenge. Keep that in mind as we go through this 4-week course of dangers of sugars. You can't live without them, but if you do too much, it will cause some problems. So I want this to be very applicable as you go through this course. And so just to conclude, new research shows foods that are high in refined sugar, flour, and grains trigger the same chemical response in the human brain as alcohol and drugs. And we know in our community, it's excessive use of alcohol and drugs, and we know how people can act when they get on alcohol and drugs. And this is not happening by happenstance. This is high science. People made a decision to put foods out there that would affect our brains. And so I'll just conclude with this statement that without How to Eat to Live, I think it's very difficult for us to understand anything, because the way that we are taught how to eat, how to fast, how to allow food to be processed in the body through How to Eat to Live gives us optimal functioning, optimal brain ability, optimal healing capabilities. Then that puts you on a plane and a level of functioning that's higher than any other way that you can be. So let's not compare ourselves to anybody else, but you function at your best ability when you're putting the right foods inside of you, giving time in between meals for your body to process that, to absorb it, to get to healing the body, and then causing that functioning to be on such a high level, walking into being a God. So thank you for listening, and I pray that this helps as we go through this class, and we are trying to improve our capabilities of doing How to Eat to Live. Assalamu alaikum.